Doug.
There's nowhere I wouldn't go to help someone customize and save on car insurance with Liberty Mutual, even if it means sitting front row at a comedy show.
Hey everyone, check out this guy and his bird. What is this, your first date?
Oh, no. We help people customize and save on car insurance with Liberty Mutual together. We're married. Me to a human, him to a bird.
Yeah, the bird looks out of your league anyways.
Get a quote at libertymutual.com or with your local agent.
Liberty, 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 liberty.
A vacation rental shouldn't come with surprises. It should come with VerboCare and 24/7 life support.
If the hot tub's broken,
that's a VerboCare thing.
If my teenager starts calling me Leslie,
that's a family thing, Leslie. VerboCare and 24/7 life support. If you know, you Verbo. Terms apply. See verbo.com/trust for details.
Hello and welcome to the Book Club Review. I'm Kate, and this is the podcast about book clubs and the books that get people talking. When The Guardian drops a list of the 100 greatest novels in English, naturally we dropped everything to talk about it. What is it about lists? What is it about book lists? Whatever it is, we can't get enough. But is it the right list? I roped in two friends of the show for an impromptu chat about the books we loved, the books we didn't, the ones we want to get to, and the ones we think should have been on there. That's all coming up in this special episode of the Book Club Review. Listeners, I know I said the next episode was going to be on Vigil by George Saunders with Jenny and Sarah of the Bookcast Club. That one is on the way, but it has temporarily been sidelined because The Guardian just published their latest list of the 100 greatest novels in English. And I dropped everything to gather my favourite bookish pals to discuss it. So joining me are pod regular journalist Phil Chaffee and fellow book podcaster making the brilliant show Curious Readers and archivist, it's Joseph Dance. Thank you both for abandoning your Sunday night plans to come and talk books with me.
It's great to be here, Kate. Thank you.
Can't think of a better way to spend a Sunday night.
So the full Guardian list came out yesterday, Saturday the 16th of May 2025, for anyone listening in the future, with an introductory article by Lisa Allardyce, and it's a list of the 100 best novels of all time as chosen by authors, critics and academics worldwide. It covers any book published in English, including translated fiction. Never has such a list been more needed, Lisa Allardyce writes. Dwindling attention spans, screens, Netflix, whatever we blame, reading for pleasure is a dying pursuit. Half of adults in the UK say they never read, and levels among children and young people are at their lowest in 20 years. This year has been declared the National Year of Reading to address this crisis. Read the best books first, or you may not have a chance to read them at all, Henry David Thoreau advised. She concludes, we at The Guardian are here to help. And so this list is an update of previous lists that came out in 2015 and then before that in 2003. The most striking difference with this one is that we've now got 36 out of 100 female writers compared with 21 in 2015 and 16 in 2003. So there's some progress there. I'll put the link to the full list in the show notes. If you haven't seen it yet, do go and have a look and see what you think. For now, we're just going to explore our hits, our misses, some general thoughts, how many we've read, whether we should have read more, whether a list like this is the way to get people excited about reading. So many questions, and luckily, I have just the right people to discuss them. Phil, shall I start with you? General thoughts, hot reaction. What did you think when the list dropped?
I love a list. I love a book list. I get super inspired. I always want to read everything on them. With all those provisos, I think this was a missed opportunity. She talks about the specs of the list are published in English. I feel like they should have just stuck with written in English, or they really should have gotten global read. It is not truly global. This is heavily Anglosphere writers. There are no books from here in Chinese, from Japanese literature, from Arabic literature. And I actually did the numbers. There's 24 books that were not written in English. Can we really say that of the greatest novels of all time, only 24 of them were not written in English? You're missing very foundational things from Chinese novels, from French, from Italian, from all over the place. And it just feels very provincial. It feels like this is a list that says it's global, but really is not. With that said, I loved it. It's very fun to read, and I love reading through. Better than the broad list was you can click through to all of the people who submitted their top 10 lists, and those actually, particularly some of the more diverse verses there, have way more interesting things than the sort of slightly sleepy stuff, the canon stuff that's in this top 100.
Yeah, it feels quite canonical, doesn't it? And when I was reading Lisa Allardyce's article introducing it, and it got to this part about redressing this crisis in reading, my real thought is, yes, but this list isn't going to do that, because it does feel quite tame, doesn't it? Joseph, how did you feel?
I sign up to Phil's vacillating indictment. I love a list, so obviously I love the discourse around this list, but I do feel, as Phil said, this is a missed opportunity. Just adding to the list of countries that are excluded from the list, we've got nothing from Scandinavia. So there's no Norwegian, there's no Knut Hamsun, there's no one from Sweden, Denmark, or Finland. Brazil has a very paltry selection. There's no Lispector. China, as Phil says, I think is a huge omission. And Japan as well. There's no Kawabata, there's no Tanizaki. These are big authors, Nobel Prize winning authors, who I think should be on a list of 100 best novels, but they're not there. It's clickbait. I see these lists as clickbait, and a good opportunity to have a conversation about books that we haven't read, to have a bit of a quarrel about the books in the top 10. But beyond that, I did like the addition of the author's own top 10s. As you were saying, you can click on those. Yeah. So it's quite interesting from that perspective. If you admire someone's writing, if you've been following someone's career as an author or a critic, to click on that and see what's included. And there were quite a few books, actually, in those sections, in those personal top 10s that didn't make it anywhere near the final 100. I think that might be the kind of meatier resource for serious readers.
Yeah, I was going to come back to it later, but perhaps we'd just go to it quickly now. I'm paging through. I've got my physical printed copy of the Saturday review. Just looking at, as a good example, Ian McEwan, right? Classic, best-selling author of Atonement, Amsterdam, Booker Prize winner. His list: number 1, Ulysses; number 2, Anna Karenina; number 3, Middlemarch; number 4, The Plague, Albert Camus; number 5, Metamorphosis, Franz Kafka; number 6, Pride and Prejudice; number 7, Madame Bovary, Gustave Flaubert; number 8, The Magic Mountain, Thomas Mann; number 9, Our Mutual Friend; and number 10, Rabbit at Rest, John Updike, which felt to me like the one sort of slightly interesting. Compare that with fellow Booker winner, which The Guardian deliberately, I think, put these two side by side, Bernardine Evaristo, Booker winning author of Girl, Woman, Other, and Mr. Loverman. Now, her list is number 1, Beloved, Toni Morrison; number 2, The Book of Night Women, Marlon James; number 3, Ghost Wall, Sarah Moss; number 4, The Joys of Motherhood, Bucci Emecheta; number 5, The Bone People, Carrie Hilme. You've read that, haven't you, Phil? I always just think, I'm never going to read The Bone People. Number 6, Quicksand, Nella Larson; number 7, The Vanishing Half, Britt Bennett; number 8, Ordinary People by Diana Evans; number 9, Their Eyes Were Watching God, Zora Neale Hurston; and number 10, Kindred by Octavia E. Butler. To me, that is a much more interesting list.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Even though you couldn't argue with any of the McEwan choices, they're complete stone cold classics, aren't they? But in terms of getting you excited, I thought, wow, oh yeah, I've never read that. I should read that, because you're interested in the person who's recommending it. And yeah, I don't know, it just felt more exciting to me. Perhaps it's that.
And it looks like they gave the submitters very few guidelines, and some of them give themselves more rigorous guidelines. Setting aside the translation issue, if the Anglosphere issue, if they had just said 10 books that you feel the most passionate about, rather than you think are the best of all time, I think it would have pulled more of these folks away from just what is the canon. And I think we would have had a much more exciting list.
Because you're very exposed, aren't you? You know, if you're an author or a critic, or who were the other people that they were asking? All I know is it wasn't me. Academics. Yeah. And then you're conscious that all your peers are going to see this, and your literary reputation is going to be evaluated. So you're going to think pretty carefully, I would submit, about your choices. And you're probably not going to be trying to rock the boat. I don't know, maybe you would, but I haven't looked into enough of the individual ones to get a sense of how they've approached it.
I've been spending all weekend doing that. It's very fun. And I have a lot of favorite writers on here. Maggie O'Farrell has a great one. Olivia Lang has a great list.
Yeah, Olivia Lang's great.
There's a bunch of really good ones. And then there's a very sleepy Ian McEwan's. I was actually very disappointed Elif Batuman went in the Ian McEwan direction. She loves her classics, as we know, but it's a bit sleepy.
She played it safe.
I think Ben Okri did the same. And that was such a disappointment. And his novel, The Famished Road, should have been on there. I forgot to say, actually, when we were talking about countries that were omitted, Africa. I think we've got South Africa, Jem Coetzee, we've got Zimbabwe, and we've got 2 authors from Nigeria. Yeah. But where Africa's, 53, 54 countries?
So Things Fall Apart by Chinua Achebe is on here, which
it is
an interesting one. Actually, I was going to ask you guys if you're prepared to put a number on it, how many you've read. So just to set out most of all, I read 52 out of 100 of these. How about you guys?
I have read 91.
Wow.
But
I did ask the right people to come on this. Phil, let's hear yours. What,
I
Phil?
was 55. I was
55,
basically
okay. Because you're a normal human being like me, right? Okay. But Joseph, it's great to have you here.
I'm a Stepford reader, yeah.
No, so what I was going to say is, and we'll come into perhaps of the ones we've read, what we think of them, but Chinua Achebe is a good example. I did Things Fall Apart for book club some years ago. I remember enjoying it. I remember thinking it was really good, and it certainly was a brilliant discussion book. But none of it really stayed with me, or I think really changed me as a person. It didn't become a touchstone book for me. And I just thought then it's interesting, of the ones I've read, actually the handful of those books that I would say, yes, I agree, that's a book that lives in my soul, is actually pretty small. A lot of these great classics or these great works, it's like we read them, but I think there is sometimes a sort of slightly dutiful element of just checking them off. I don't know, is that a controversial view?
I don't think that's necessarily controversial when you're talking about the Western canon. I'm just looking at some of the books that I've read that I thought were a chore. I'm going to be sacrilegious and say Ulysses. I really struggled with Ulysses.
I've never
read it. As a student and a reader, there you go. Maybe don't read it.
But it's because I assumed it would be difficult and boring.
Do you know what really got me into Ulysses was listening to it on audio and hearing the Irish lilt. But I had to, even as a student, even with seminars and lectures, I had to use a guide. So there's a number of guides out there. So that was one book that really struck me as probably, I wouldn't read it again. But then on the other hand, and I'm going to sound like a completely obnoxious literature graduate here, I have read In Search of Lost Time a few times, like all of the novels. And I think that's an incredibly difficult book to get into. I remember the first time I read it, I thought, what am I doing? This is such a waste of my life. But I persevered. I got past the wall and it was fantastic. It was one of those series of novels that taught me how to read.
Interesting. And I feel like people who've read it, you too, Phil, right? It's so foundational, is it that it underpins so much other literature?
Yeah, I think so. There's another category issue here, which is they allow that to be one book.
Yes, which for anyone who's read the whole lot is a bit annoying, right?
But then My Brilliant Friend is just one book. Like, why not say the whole Neapolitan?
So inconsistent.
I hadn't spotted that, yeah.
So anyway, it's really nitpicky.
But see, you read all 7. So in fact, Joseph's read what? 100 and whatever it is. No, 99. I'm so bad at maths.
I think there is something to saying not just books that you really liked, but books that you really, even a book that you might have slogged through, but that you felt did something, as I do think reading Proust does. That's an important thing. And I think that's a lot of what the canon can be. But yeah, also when you read a lot of the Brontes, that is all pulp too, or Dickens, right?
Wuthering Heights. Wuthering Heights is number 20 on this list. And that did slightly annoy me because Wuthering Heights is all over the place.
Yeah.
It's got a baggy middle. That's another one of my issues, is that there's lots of authors who are included on this list, and the books that appear, I don't think it's their best work. So I think we've got The Sound and the Fury by Faulkner. Where's As I Lay Dying? For me, that's a far superior, more emotionally intact novel. And we were just talking about the Brontes, Wuthering Heights. Yeah, I'm not a fan. I think I last read it when I was about 14 years old. But Villette by Charlotte Bronte. Yeah, exactly. But Villette by Charlotte Bronte, the better sister, where's that?
Also, there was a lot of Dickens on this list. That's where the Anglophile bias was like, all that Dickens, but you're not going to put Hugo or Balzac? Anyway.
I'll tell you what there was a lot of is Virginia Woolf. Which is interesting, isn't it? Why are we suddenly all so drawn to Virginia Woolf? And interestingly as well, so different. Like Orlando, easy read, a delight. The Waves, I would argue borderline unreadable. I've certainly never managed to finish it. To the Lighthouse, for me, is in the middle. And really, that was the one that I remember when I read that. I was just like, oh, that was incredible because it was just the right amount of hard and yet also just the right amount of readable. And it really does everything you want a Virginia Woolf novel.
That's the one that scored highest here, right?
I think it did, yeah. But there are five books by Virginia Woolf on the list.
Yeah, it's a bit eclectic.
And all of Austen as well. And as much as I love Austen, she was one of my dissertation options at university. And again, Persuasion isn't being placed as the best Austen novel. What are these people thinking?
Yeah. So this is another thing that interests me. So I've now reached the grand old age of 52. And often when we talk about reading and how much we've read, I'm struck by the fact that it's just cumulative, right? If you're a reader and you read a certain amount of books and you keep reading consistently, then by the time you clock in just over your 50s, you're going to have read quite a lot. But I also think sometimes you read books when you're not ready for them. And some books, certainly I read when I was too young. I think I read 100 Years of Solitude, and it just completely, I didn't really get it or understand it. And yet that's on this list as number 17, so it's pretty high. Middlemarch, I read when I was too young. I came back to it a few years ago and was absolutely like, yes, this is an incredible book. And this is number one on the list, by the way. This is our top choice. But I think that's fair enough. I do think Middlemarch is a really great novel, but you have to be, I think, old enough to appreciate it.
I think, yeah, I've come to Middlemarch as a teenager. I've read it in my 20s as a student, and I've read it much later. There's just so much going on in that book. There's so many storylines. It's so propulsive. It's a real cathedral of a novel. I think you can get something out of it at different ages. I must say, though, reading George Eliot when I was younger, when I was a teenager, I didn't find Middlemarch to be... I found it to be quite a slog, actually. Maybe it wasn't the formative novel that everyone makes it out to be. I think it's one of those novels that you have to pull out the historical strands and what was happening at that time in England to get the most out of it.
When I read it when I was younger, of course, the character you relate to is Dorothea, right? She's the heroine. And then when I read it when I was much older, do you know what character I related to the most?
Casaubon?
Yes!
Oh, God, I was joking.
Yes, I can relate to your life struggle and your feelings of failure and just not doing anything meaningful with your time at all because you just got in your own way the whole time. And I was like, oh my God, that's me.
I did see a funny comment about the list online referencing Middlemarch in particular, and it said, gratifying to see Middlemarch at number one, which has the magical ability to make you feel like you're sitting down with George Eliot gossiping about some weirdos and their terrible life decisions.
But it is great, isn't it? Because that actually, it's one of those books where what you love it for, and these are my favorite books, is the author's voice, is that sense of the author just talking to you. And there are a couple of moments, aren't there, where she breaks the fourth wall and just addresses you as the reader directly. And I love it so much for that. It's just wonderful the way that time just collapses. Virginia Woolf is very much like that as well, isn't it? You'd feel like she's sitting next to you. When we come back, the one book on the list that surprised us, the books we would have included if The Guardian had asked us, and of the ones we haven't read, which books on the list are we going to seek out? But before we get to that, a quick message about how you can get more out of your reading and support me in making the podcast over on Patreon. If you want to come and talk books with me in person, you can join the Podcast Book Club. We meet on the last Sunday of every month over Zoom with a catch-up recording for anyone who couldn't make the live session. To enhance your reading, you'll get a special episode on that month's book. Plus, you can share your thoughts as you go along in our chat group. This month, we're reading This Is Where the Serpent Lives by Danielle Winadine, a book I confidently expect to see on the Booker Prize shortlist later this year. While next month, our June read is We Are Green and Trembling by Gabriela Cabazon Camara. Described as lyrical and swashbuckling, tender and surreal, it won the US National Book Award for Translated Literature. But what will our book club think? Find all the details for how to join at patreon.com/The Book Club Review, where you'll also see all the other membership benefits, including ad-free episodes, extra episodes, and you'll get to swap bookish thoughts and recommendations in our chat groups. Curious but can't sign up for the paid tier? Free members get my weekly reading diaries, a behind-the-scenes peek into my reading life, plus monthly wrap-ups. There's lots to discover, and I would love to see you there. Right. Back to the top 100, and there was one book on the list that I had never even heard of. What about number 96? Pedro Paramo by Juan Rulfo, 1955. spoiler alert, without this short book from the Mexican author, we might not have had one of the more famous works on this list. Gabriel Garcia Marquez read it in one sitting when it was published. The next day, he began 100 Years of Solitude. In this surreal, time-shifting story, a son goes in search of his father, the tyrant Pedro Paramo, in the rural town of Comala, which is now inhabited by ghosts. It was the only novel the enigmatic Rolfo published in his lifetime. Anyone? Just me? Just
Joseph,
you
I'm
read
sure
that?
you've read it. 91 books.
No.
One of the 9 you haven't.
This crowns the 9 that I haven't read. The lost volumes. It sounds absolutely fascinating.
And presumably several people must have recommended it for it to appear on this list.
I've certainly heard of it a lot, and I actually picked it up and read half of it when I was on vacation in Mexico a couple of years ago. And I very much fell asleep by the pool and did not start it again.
So a ringing endorsement.
Of the ones you've read, what's one where you're most pleased to see it there? You thought, yes, I'm so happy that this is here. Phil, have you got one?
Yeah, I've got 2 for that. One was actually not my absolute favorite, but I was just absolutely delighted it was there, which is Rebecca. I love Daphne du Maurier. It is such a great, that's also pulpy, but so brilliant. And yeah, I am absolutely over that was there. The other one was my favorite book in the world, which is The Leopard. And that's multiple times. And
I'll put a heart by that on my scribbles.
Yeah, but that is a book I try to read every 5 years.
And there's more humour. There's more warmth and humour to that one. And it's interesting, actually. It's quite a serious list. There's no P.G. Wodehouse. It's all at the more sombre end of the scale. But I feel like there is a lightness and a playfulness to The Leopard that's absolutely delightful. Joseph, how about you?
I think, I'm just looking at the list now. I'm happy they're all there. What was the question? Am I particularly happy to have read one?
Yeah, there's one that's on the list that you're just, like you would absolutely endorse that choice. You think, definitely.
I think because it ties into my evolution as a reader, I would say Nervous Conditions, which is number 74 by Tsitsi Dangaremba. I think this was the first book I read by a Zimbabwean author. And it's a country whose literature I've been mining ever since. I don't know if you've read it, but it's a fantastic autobiographical novel set in the 60s. And it's about a family coming to terms with social shifts following what's happening in Rhodesia in post-colonial times. And it's just a beautifully written novel. She's such a fantastic writer.
Yeah, that I thought was a really interesting inclusion on the list. She comes in at number 74. I was familiar with her from This Mournable Body, which
is the third one of that trilogy.
Yeah. And I think we read it then when it was shortlisted for the Booker, right? And that's why I've read it. And my feeling at the time was I really liked it. I felt like it had suffered slightly because it was clearly part of a bigger story.
Part of a trilogy, yeah.
And I was missing it a lot. And I always meant to go and read more of her and never got around to it.
I would probably put the trilogy on the list. As Phil was saying, it's a little bit all over the place on that front in terms of the rules. But the trilogy is obviously Nervous Conditions, and then The Book of Not, which I didn't think was as good. I think there was quite a big gap between the first novel and the second. And then This Mournable Body, which I thought was fantastic. But yeah, more trilogies.
Having asked you that question, I'm actually looking at my notes. The Transit of Venus by Shirley Hazard, I put didn't love it. Don Quixote by Miguel de Cervantes, I put too hard, impossible.
Too hard.
I think I tried to read it and I didn't get on with it at all. I know I'm always going on about the Magic Mountain, but that to me is a book where you have to dig slightly deep because it's quite boring and it's very long, beautifully written, but you spend a lot of time in this sanatorium in the mountains where not much is happening. And also it's quite depressing because everyone's slowly dying of consumption. But the payoff, the trade-off at the end is so worth it. And there are scenes, completely unforgettable scenes in that book that I was so pleased to have read and which absolutely did change me as a reader as a result. So that for me was the one where I was like, yeah, absolutely, that should be on there. There's also Buddenbrooks, which I have a copy of but haven't got round to, but I always meant to read.
That is a very fun read, Kate, and it's so much easier than The Magic Mountain. A different thing. So actually, Kate, on that note, Jeff Dyer, who's great, his top 10 list, it has Lonesome Dove, which I know you thought was egregiously excluded, and he said
I
it's
mean-
underrated because of its popularity.
I think my message to Phil was I can't take seriously any greatest novels list that doesn't have Lonesome Dove
Yeah,
on it. I'm
100% agree with
sorry,
that.
I'm out.
100% agree.
So everything beyond this is me overlooking that. But that, yeah, absolutely. That would be number one on my list of books that should be on this
But
list.
he also included the Transitive Vita, saying it's a test of a reader's ability. And I do feel like that because I absolutely loved it when I read it several months
Did
ago.
you?
And
Yeah.
I just think it was hard and parts were a slog. But then that payoff at the end where I had to go back and reread the beginning was so rewarding.
I think this just exposes what a lazy reader I am. I just, so many of these books, I'm like, yeah, I tried it. It was too hard. Or I'm not even going to try it because I think it's going to be too hard. Or I think it's going to be too depressing, right? There's a reason I've never read Blood Meridian by Cormac McCarthy. I'm sure it's an absolute masterpiece, but I'm not going to go near it because it sounds horrific.
It is a tough read. It's not one that you'd pick up by the beach or the pool.
Don't want to put myself through it. I think I'm fine with that because in terms of, obviously, Joseph, you've read most of them, but there's a reason Phil and I have only read 55 or 50 is because we've been reading a whole load of other stuff. I know you have as well. But the point is, it's about the books we choose to spend our time with. And every time we commit to reading something that's going to take us a week, 3 days, 2 weeks, whatever, we're not reading something else. And so it is about those choices. And so that's why I think lists like this and people's opinions about books and getting that sense of the web of readers and interconnections and everyone pooling their knowledge in this way is so enriching and rewarding as a reader when you're trying to pick your way through and decide the books that you want to spend your time on. So yeah, books that you would have wanted to see on there that weren't on there.
Ooh, so many.
So The Guardian have a form you can fill in. Have your say, they say. And you can fill in up to 3 choices. They want 1, and then you're allowed to give an extra 2. And late last night, in the mood, I did fill in this form. I put Lonesome Dove for reasons earlier mentioned. I feel like it's just such an extraordinary book. And anyone who's read it knows. It's true, for the first 300 pages or so, you're not quite sure what all the fuss is about. You're really like, do I really care about these 2 aging cowboys and this business about taking these cattle up to Montana? You're really not sure. And then you get to the dust storm and suddenly you look up from the page and you're like, oh my God, I can't believe how much I care about these cowboys and these cows. And that then carries you through the whole rest, whatever it is, like 700 pages. My second pick was The Memory Police by Yoko Ogawa. Japanese author, which we did for book club and which I just found such a haunting, resonant read. I thought it was beautifully written, but I thought it was one of those books that really, it's a story about people forgetting things and things disappearing. And no one remarks on this because collectively the population forget. And it's very sinister. And then there are a few people who are immune to this memory loss. And these people are hunted down ruthlessly by these sort of enforcers. It's just such an interesting book. And it's, yeah, as I said, it's beautifully written, but it's one that really felt so resonant, brilliant for book club discussion. And recently, this sense of everything we're in the process of losing, it keeps coming back to me. I keep thinking about it. So I thought, yeah, that should be on there. And my last one, which they probably would seem perhaps a bit slight, but the novella by Helen DeWitt, The English Understand Wool, which I just think is such a perfect gem of a book. Published by New Directions, part of a series that are designed to return us to the pleasures of childhood reading, where we would curl up with a book and we would read the whole book without getting distracted, without getting interrupted, and how wonderful that was. And so this whole series of novellas is designed to help you tap back into that. And this one is just so much fun. It's so clever and it's so enjoyable. It's a kind of slight mystery story of this young woman who's been brought up very correctly with very wealthy parents, and suddenly the parents disappear, and then there's a whole backstory that you learn about. And then basically the publishing industry tried to take advantage of her and monetize her. And it's really about how she outwits them. And it's just the best. I reread it whenever I need a bit of a pick-me-up. It's my perfect go-to book. So anyway, that was my number 3. So there you go. You've had lots of thinking time now. Who's going to go first? Phil, should we go with you?
Yeah, Hen really thought of it. The ones that jumped to mind, one which I noticed his absence was A Season of Migration to the North by Tayyib Saleh, which is also another one of my favorite novels.
I have never heard of it. What is that?
He's a Sudanese novelist. I think it came out in the 70s, maybe. It's very slender. It's basically a novella, and it's about this Sudanese guy who goes to London and lives there and then comes back. I don't want to say too much. It's pretty crazy, but it's an amazing novel. And it's another sort of, probably would make the list of the top Arabic language novels. A lot of the top African novels are on that list as well. A bit more competition there. But I would say that one. I would say of the very early stuff, The Princess of Cleves, which I'm massacring the French, by Madame de Lafayette, it's thought of as one of the most embryonic novels. It's from the 17th century. It's also another slender read. I recently read it a month or two ago, and it's great. And it has this opera plot, but then it goes into this amazing psychological realism, and it does jump off the page. It's very much part of the French canon, but yeah, I would just do those two. I'm sure I could think of more. I'm curious for yours, Joseph.
Yeah, me too. Will I have heard of them?
Well, you have heard of them. You should have heard of them. No shame. I think I would put some novels by the Egyptian writer Naguib Mahfouz on the list. So I'm thinking about his Cairo trilogy. Have you read that?
Yes.
I haven't read all three. I've read the first one.
Palace Walk.
Yes, which I love.
Yeah, which is absolutely fantastic. So you know all about that. It's basically charting the life of a family. It's the family of the patriarch of Cairo from, I think, is it maybe like 1918, 1919, when the first Egyptian revolution happens. And it goes all the way through to the Second World War, or maybe even further. I can't remember now. But yeah, it is a bit further, isn't it? And I read it a long time ago, but it obviously left quite a big impression on me. And I think the youngest son of the family, Kamal, who just has this fantastic storyline, and we see him as a child in the first book, and then he's a student and he becomes a teacher, an unmarried teacher. He gets a lot of flack from that. He's like Mahfouz, but in character form. And it's just such a rich tapestry with all of the family members. Another book I would probably add on is The Makioka Sisters by Tanizaki. It's almost like a Japanese Pride and Prejudice. It's a book about trying to marry off the third daughter of the family who's sat on the shelf. And it's a book about not necessarily the westernization of Japan, but the modernization of Japan as it approaches the kind of spectre of the Second World War. And it's just incredible. If we're calling Middlemarch a cathedral, I think it was the New York Times critic Parul Sehgal who called The Makioka Sisters the Taj Mahal of novels. It deserves a place as a landmark building on this list, but it's not there. But I would add it in. And can I just say also, The Guardian saying that you can only suggest 5 other novels. This clearly is 3 other. This answers to my point. This is clearly enraging clickbait, isn't it? Because any serious reader worth their salt is going to have a list of 20.
Also, you're only allowed to write 100 words, but there's no actual way of calculating it. I'm pretty sure I wrote way more than 100 words.
I would need to be on fistfuls of blood pressure medication just to approach this form.
And in terms of then TBR, obviously, Joseph, you could probably just go ahead and read the 9 you haven't read already. For me, of the ones I hadn't read, I've been feeling quite bad about the fact that I've never read any Kafka. And there were 2 on here, The Trial and Metamorphosis. So I was like, must read some Kafka. I have on my shelf downstairs The Go-Between by L.P. Hartley, number 99, which I've never read. Come on, just pick it up. It's like one of the best books. The House of Mr. Biswas, same. I have a copy of that, and I always thought I should probably... The thing is, I guess I found out a little bit about V.S. Naipaul, and I didn't think he sounded very nice. And so that kind of slightly put me off. Like, I don't know. I just wasn't sure. I didn't know what to make of him, and that made me wonder whether I should give all my time to reading his novel. Yeah, I think they were my obvious ones. And then Ulysses I have underlined. Come on, you can't call yourself a reader if you've never read Ulysses. How about you guys?
I'm in much the same position. I basically am a completist at heart, so a list like that is catnip for me to just go through all of them. Ulysses and Moby-Dick are at the top of my list.
And Moby-Dick, I think I've aged into Moby-Dick. I actually feel quite hungry to read Moby-Dick.
Likewise. Maybe
because I tried it years ago and I never got beyond the first chapter in the room in the inn with Ishmael. But recently I feel like it's been really creeping up on me. And my friend Rob Delaney is about to do a 20-episode podcast series with, I think, an American academic that's all about Moby-Dick. And I found myself strangely excited. Yes, I will be reading along with this. So yes, perhaps you should do it with me.
But I was going to say the things that actually got me going and buying and downloading books were from the author recommendations. And there were two from Tom Crew, who wrote that book,
The New Life.
I do. Yeah.
We disagreed about The New Life, didn't we?
Exactly.
I was not a fan.
I thought he's a great writer. I think
I
he's
know.
a really interesting. You disagreed on the prose, as I remember.
Didn't love it.
But he obviously loves his 19th century fiction and his 19th century era. And he had two recommendations, which were not, one was very much on my radar. One was Miss Marjorie Banks by Margaret Oliphant. Is that on your radar, Kate?
No, never heard of that.
She also goes by Mrs. Oliphant, which I think what was her byline was in the era when she was being published. But he says Mrs. Oliphant is a great overlooked British novelist of the 19th century, and this is a comic masterpiece with a claim, as Q.D. Levis said, to be the wisest and wittiest of Victorian novels, which sounds really fun.
Yeah, it does sound good.
The other one, which has been on my radar, but I haven't let myself go to it yet, is the Palliser novels by Trollope. As I think I've raved a couple times on the podcast about the Barsetshire novels, which is a sequence of 6. The Palliser novels are another sequence of 6. It's much more set in London and in politics. But here's what Crew says: the greatest novel sequence in the English language, but also better than Proust. Contains several masterpieces, unbelievably rich, giving almost all of the pleasures possible in fiction, and one of the great marriages in Plantagenet Palliser and Lady Glencora. That sounds really good. So I am very excited for those.
I'm sold. And you got me to read Trollope, and I absolutely adored The Warden, which I think is the first in the Barsetshire books. And it was such a delight. And I'm just meaning to go back to them. But so, yeah, that sounds good. Joseph, how about you?
In terms of books that I've not read on the list?
Yeah, from your 9 that you haven't read,
9.
which ones are you going to be reading?
Do you know, I hate to break this to the team, but it's actually 8. I miscalculated. I have read Housekeeping by Marilyn Robinson, which is excellent. And actually, I'm surprised Gilead isn't on there as well. But which are the ones am I not? Should I shock you and say I've not read Moby-Dick? So number 15, that's on my list.
You can join me and Phil in we pretty much just agreed we're going to buddy read it along with Delaney in the summer.
Okay.
So you can join us for that.
That sounds very tempting. I might audiobook it on a run as well. I think that might be a way of getting through it. The Man Without Qualities by Robert Musil.
Oh, Joseph, I read the synopsis of that. I'm sorry. Can I just... I know you want to wrap up. Can I just read
Everyone I've spoken
to you?
to about this has said it's awful.
It says more than 20 years. This is number 67. More than 20 years in the writing, exceeding 1,000 pages in 3 unfinished volumes. This modernist masterpiece, from an author generally viewed as the Austrian Proust, is set in 1930s Vienna in the dying days of the Austro-Hungarian Empire. The protagonist is a mathematician in the grip of existential crisis, reflecting on the meaning and meaninglessness of the world around him. No novelist is dearer to me, said Milan Kundera. First line: there was a depression over the Atlantic. P.D. Smith says it perfectly captures the period before the First World War in Central Europe and anticipates the intellectual uncertainty of the modern reader. And I thought, nope. Just like, I'm out.
Kate's out.
So let me know if it's any good.
I'm saying I probably won't read it because everyone I've spoken to now about this list has said this is an awful book. Not an awful book, but just not a book for them. And the readers I trust recommendations from. One book I do want to read, and it was on the MIT list as well of best novels, is The Known World.
Yes, that's great.
Is it? Yeah, I can imagine it's amazing. That's by Edward P. Jones. And that actually came out. It feels like one of those novels that should have come out in the 1970s, but it's actually from 2003. And it's, from what I've read on the blurb, it's set, Phil, you can correct me, but it's set in Virginia during the antebellum era. And it's about a black man who used to be a slave, and he himself becomes a slave owner.
Yeah.
And there's lots in here about, obviously, slavery, abolition, what it means to be a person, what it means to be free. It's meant to be an amazing character study as well. So, yeah, it's definitely a book I want to pick up.
Yeah, they've got a quote from Marza Mengiste, who says, this breathtaking novel, at once painful and revelatory, is a transcendent reminder that this known world also contains profound mercies and unwavering acts of courage and hope. I'm sold. That. Fine. I would read that.
That's what we should be reading with Rob Delaney.
After we've got through Moby-Dick. Hey, you know what? One problem we do not have is, there just aren't enough good books to read, right? It's the opposite problem. And I'm happy we have this problem. It's a shame about the decline of reading. I don't know how. Yeah, because it just feels so sad, but such pleasure. And interest and kind of, I just can't imagine not wanting to engage with it all. And are we really going to lose it? Or do you think it will come back? I hope people will come back to all of this.
I think there's a bit of an analog revolution going on at the moment, isn't there? With the younger cohort of Gen Z and Gen Alpha moving back to cassette tapes. And I think reading is coming back. Reading's been sexy for quite a while now. My big issue, and I talk about this a lot on Curious Readers, is reading as an empathy builder. Not just losing reading as a pastime or a way to make people happier or elevate the general intelligence level in the population. It's the fact that people not reading, what was the stat? It was like 50% of adults have never read a book for pleasure.
Say they don't read.
Say they don't read on a regular basis. That's 50% of the population in the UK that are not reading about other people's experiences and not having the chance to stand in other people's shoes. Sounds a bit cliched, but that is essentially what a book is. It's an opportunity to live another life. And if you're not getting, that's a bit worrying.
All we can do is just keep having these conversations, keep reading these books, keep telling people about the ones that we really love. And hopefully, all of us readers can spread the joy.
I think we should shame people, Kate. I think that's a much more powerful tool in this instance.
Okay, you're going to go low. I'm going to go high. All right. I knew this would be a lot of fun. I've enjoyed it so much. Thank you both so much for joining me. I can only aspire to be as good and curious a reader as you, Joseph. And Phil, also, you leave me behind. But I always get great inspiration from the books that you guys love. And hopefully listeners do too. Thanks for joining me.
It was a great chat. Thank you.
So there you have it, listeners. On an otherwise ordinary Sunday night, I got to have the best chat about books. And thanks to the podcast, I get to share it with all of you. As my non-list related reading, I've been enjoying This Is Where the Serpent Lives by Danielle Mouinedine, our Patreon book club read this month. It's a sequence of 4 interlinked novellas set in Pakistan, and the writing has been compared to Chekhov and Tolstoy, which I think is fair. I've also been enjoying Latest Readings by Australian cultural polymath Clive James. I was late to discovering Clive James as a reader. I took the recommendation from critic Kevin Power in his book The Written World and acquired a copy of James's great work Cultural Amnesia. It's a dazzling collection of short essays on major cultural figures of the 20th century. It's also a doorstep of a book. I've been reading it slowly over some months, my head whirling with each one. It's organised alphabetically, and thus far I've made it to C and Coco Chanel. Did you know that she employed a person to write aphorisms for her? At the library, I found Latest Readings, a much slimmer volume, which has a more melancholy premise, even more so if you've become fond of Clive James, in that it's about the books he read at the very end of his life. And yet, as an exploration of what someone, a lifelong lover of books, is choosing to read or reread when they have a very limited time left, is actually rather beautiful and moving, and his choices seem more than worthwhile. Crucially, of course, they were worthwhile to him. I wonder what he would have made of the list. The critic should write to say not, "Look how much I've read," but "Look at this, it's wonderful," he writes. And later, he writes of Proust's idea about the community of minds. Usually, it takes a whole bunch of us to understand anything, he writes. So anyone who thinks he can do the whole thing by himself is almost certainly a crackpot. Thanks to the Guardian's list, we have a sense of this glorious community of readers, the writers, critics and academics who were asked to contribute, and all of the rest of us with our own tastes and preferences. It all makes me feel so happy to be a reader and want to share the experience with others. So if you have someone in your life who doesn't read, perhaps you could choose something you think they might love and suggest reading it together. Next up on the Book Club Review is a book club episode on Vigil, the new novel from George Saunders. Come to think of it, how can they have missed his Booker winner Lincoln in the Bardo from the Guardian list? As you'll hear though, our feelings about Vigil were much more mixed, all of which makes for a fun book club debate. I'm joined by 2 brilliant readers and podcasters, Sarah and Jenny from the Bookcast Club. For more from the pod, do check out the Patreon, where you'll find all the details of how to join for extra episodes, book club membership, and my weekly reading diaries, which are free to everyone. I would love to see you there. Otherwise, come and find me on Instagram at Book Club Review Podcast, or email thebookclubreview@gmail.com and let me know the books that will be on your greatest novels list. But for now, thanks for listening and happy reading.